Hello everyone. I'm Mary. It's a sunny spring afternoon in New York, in a luxurious mansion on the Upper East Side. I'm sitting on the sofa by the window, reading my favorite book. The gentle chirping of birds fills the quiet space, but my heart still feels a little empty. My mother passed away when I was 8 years old, leaving behind a void that nothing can fill. Mary, have you had lunch yet? Mr. Bukasai, my father, walked into the living room with a worried look. I just finished eating, Dad. Don't worry. I smiled, put down the book and stood up. Dad, looks a little tired. Are you stressed from work? Dad always has a lot of work, but he's fine. You're the one I worry about the most. Mr. Bukasai, my father sighed, his eyes shining with love. You've spent too much time alone. Dad, take me to the Kadono family wedding tonight. Mary will meet a lot of interesting people. I nodded slightly. Kadono was my father's best friend, and someone I had always considered an uncle. That's a good idea, Dad. I think we should go out for a bit. The party was an indispensable part. My father, Mr. Bukasai, a successful businessman, was a devoted father. Since his wife died, he had given me all his love, not letting me lack anything. Just remember one thing, Mary. He put his hand on my shoulder, his eyes full of protection. No matter what happens, Dad's always here. I smiled brightly, not knowing that those words would become a great source of comfort for me in the stormy future. That night, in the splendid setting of the wedding reception at the Plaza Hotel, I walked in with a radiant appearance. My long brown hair was tied back, and my emerald green evening gown hugged my slim figure. The wedding was filled with soft music and sparkling lights. Mary, you're here? A familiar deep voice rang out from behind. Kadono, my father's best friend, walked over. He was dressed in a formal black suit, a friendly smile always on his face. Hello, Mary! Mary replied cheerfully, his eyes shining with friendliness. Dad, Mary said, Mary has been looking forward to seeing Uncle Kadono all week. That's right. The last time I saw you, you were a little girl with 2 pigtails. It's great that you've grown into such a beautiful young woman. Kadono looked at her affectionately. I chuckled. Uncle Kadono is teasing me. Uncle Kadono and Dad must be very close. I always hear Dad Bukasai mention you. That's right. Father Mary and I are like brothers. Papa Mary always treated your family like my family, Kadono said, his tone sincere. Kadono. Another voice rang out. It was Mr. Bukasai. He stepped forward with a bright smile, shaking his best friend's hand. Thank you, Uncle Kadono, for inviting me and Papa. Everything was wonderful. It's nothing. You and your father are my honored guests. Kadono glanced at me again, the smile never leaving his lips. I didn't realize that behind that elegant appearance was a terrifying pretense. To me, Kadono was just a kind uncle, but that was just a facade Kadono had built up over the years. The wedding reception was fun and lively. The guests were engrossed in conversation, laughter filling the hall. Mary enjoyed the atmosphere, but after a while, she felt the need to find a restroom. Father, I'll go out for a moment, I said quietly to Mr. Bukasai, who was busy chatting with some guests. Okay, but don't take too long, he replied without taking his eyes off the conversation. Mary walked down the long hallway, the warm yellow lights illuminating every detail on the ornate walls. However, the hotel was so large that she couldn't see any signs indicating to the bathroom. Mary, do you need any help? Kadono's familiar voice rang out from behind me. Mary turned around and saw Kadono standing there with a friendly smile. Uncle Kadono. I was looking for the bathroom, but I seem to have gotten lost. The bathroom is at the end of this hallway. Let me show you the way. It's easy to get lost here," Kadono said, his voice soft and caring. "Thank you," Mary replied, completely trusting. Kadono led Mary down a smaller, more deserted hallway. "Here, kid. This room." He pointed to a door near the end. Mary stepped in, thanked him, and prepared to close the door. But before she could, Kadono snuck in, closed the door, and locked it from the inside. "What are you doing?" Mary was taken aback, taking a step back. "You're always this beautiful, Mary?" Kadono stepped closer, his eyes no longer as gentle as before. "Uncle Kadono, what are you talking about?" "Open the door." She panicked, trying to run towards the door, but Kadono grabbed her hand, holding it tight. "Don't scream, Mary. You know I wouldn't do anything to hurt you, right?" His voice was now filled with malice, completely different from the gentleman I once knew. "Let me go! What are you doing?" I struggled, but my strength was no match for his. At this point, I began to feel like I was falling into a real nightmare. I tried my best to resist, but Kadono was too strong. He tightened his grip on my arms, forcing me into a corner of the room. "Stop struggling, Mary. No one can hear you," he said, his voice cold and brazen. "Let me go! Help me! Someone, please!" I screamed, tears streaming down my cheeks, but the music and laughter from the party outside drowned out my cries for help. Kadono appeared calm, as if he had anticipated everything. He covered my mouth with his hand, preventing my screams from escaping. "Don't make things difficult for me. No one will know, this is just a secret between us." I struggled violently, but my strength was not enough to escape his grasp. "Uncle Kadono, please, please don't do this," I begged, my voice trembling. "I've waited for this day for so long, Mary. You're more beautiful than anyone I've ever seen," he whispered in my ear, making me shiver with disgust. In the cramped space of the bathroom, I felt completely helpless. I struggled until I was exhausted, but all my efforts were in vain. The laughter and lavish lights outside only added to my despair. The nightmare didn't stop there. Kadono took advantage of the situation to continue his horrible actions. I kept screaming in pain and panic, but no one came to save me. "Mary, you should be quiet if you don't want things to get worse," Kadono threatened, his tone now completely emotionless. Time seemed to stop in the nightmare. Finally he let me go. I was scared and exhausted, both physically and mentally. Kadono adjusted his clothes, looking at me coldly. "Keep this a secret, dear. Otherwise, the consequences will not be pleasant." The door opened, Kadono walked out, leaving Mary hurt and broken. She collapsed on the floor, tears streaming down her cheeks. During the party, Mr. Bukasai began to worry when I did not return. He left the group of guests chatting to look for his daughter. "Where is Mary?" "She said she would go out for a while," he asked a nearby waiter. "She said she was looking for the restroom," the waiter replied. Mr. Bukasai frowned. "Where is the restroom? Show me the way." The waiter directed him to the hallway leading to the restroom. As he approached, he heard a small noise coming from one of the rooms. His fatherly instincts told him that something was wrong. He quickly called for a few more servants to come help. "Mary! Are you in there?" Mr. Bukasai knocked loudly on the door, his voice filled with concern. There was no answer. "Break the door down!" he shouted, panic evident in his eyes. A few security guards rushed over to help. They used every means to break down the thick door. When the door opened, the scene inside left everyone speechless. I huddled in the corner of the room, my skirt in disarray, my face streaked with tears. Mr. Bukasai was stunned, not believing what he saw. "Mary!" He rushed forward, kneeling beside me. Dad? My voice choked, my hands shaking as I grabbed my father's arm. His eyes turned from panic to anger when he saw Kadono standing nearby, trying to appear calm but unable to hide his confusion. You! What did you do to my daughter? Kadono opened his mouth to defend himself, but Mr. Bukasai couldn't hold back. His rage was so intense that he rushed forward and punched the friend he once considered a brother in the face. You traitor! How dare you do this to my daughter? He roared, continuing to attack Kadono. Others had to intervene to pull Mr. Bukasai away, but his eyes were still filled with anger. Kadono was escorted out of the room by security, while Mary was taken to the emergency room. Mary, I'm here. Don't be afraid, he whispered, his voice warm but not hiding the pain. I was taken to the hospital that night. In the emergency room, I lay motionless, staring at the ceiling. Doctors and nurses kept checking on me, but my spirit seemed to have collapsed. Mr. Bukasai sat in the hallway, his head in his hands. He had never felt so helpless. His heart ached as he remembered the pained look in his daughter's eyes, a look that he knew would haunt him forever. Mr. Bukasai. The doctor came out, his voice calm but serious. We have done a preliminary examination. Physically, Mary will need time to recover, but her mental trauma is a big problem. She needs special support to overcome this shock. I understand. Thank you, doctor, Mr. Bukasai replied, his voice hoarse. When he entered the hospital room, he saw me still lying there, my face pale and my eyes lifeless. He sat down next to her, took my hand. Mary, it's Dad. Tell Dad. I didn't answer, just turned my face away, tears welling up again. Mary, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. Father's voice trembled, each word breaking. I should have realized, should have done something before it happened. But I swear to Mary, I won't leave that man alone. He will pay for what he did. I squeezed my father's hand, a weak reflex, but it was the first sign that I was still listening to him. In the days that followed, I was immersed in silence and fear. Every time someone entered the room, I would shrink, my eyes haunted. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I just sat still or cried uncontrollably. Mr. Bukasai never left my side for a minute, but deep inside, he felt an inconsolable sense of guilt. How could a father, a powerful man like him, let this happen to his only daughter? Despite the pain, he knew what he had to do next. He would fight for his daughter, seek justice, and make sure Kadono never harmed anyone again. The next morning, Mr. Bukasai went to the New York Police Department to report the incident. As he stood before the police on duty, he tried to remain calm, but he could not hide his anger and pain. Mr. Bukasai, you are saying that Mr. Kadono has... The police hesitated, quickly skimming the report. Yes. He has attacked my daughter. I demand that you arrest him immediately. Mr. Bukasai's voice echoed throughout the room. He not only betrayed me, but he has ruined my daughter's life. I will not let this go unnoticed. The police nodded, looking at him seriously. We need Ms. Mary's testimony to complete the report. However, with the initial evidence you provided, such as the traces in the toilet and her condition, we have grounds to arrest Mr. Kadono for investigation. The police immediately sent an investigation team to Kadono's home. He was arrested at his own home without any time to react. As he was handcuffed, he tried to maintain his composure, but the anxiety in his eyes was clear. You're making a big mistake, Kadono said, his voice hoarse. I didn't do anything wrong. Meanwhile, at the hospital, I began working with psychologists. She was advised that confronting and recounting the incident was the first step to regaining her own power. Dad, I don't want to talk about it. I'm scared. I sobbed as Mr. Bukasai encouraged me to give my testimony. Mary, I know you're scared. But this isn't just about justice, it's about getting your freedom back. I'll always be here, no matter what. Mary finally agreed to testify before the police. She tearfully recounted everything, from how Kadono led her into the bathroom, locked the door, to what happened next. Her testimony, along with other evidence, left the police with no doubt about Kadono's guilt. After a week of thorough investigation, the police officially brought the case to court. Mr. Bukasai hired the best team of lawyers to ensure that Kadono could not get away with his crime. At trial, Kadono tried to deny the crime, but the physical evidence and Mary's testimony left the jury with no doubt. Mr. Kadono, you not only physically hurt a young girl, but you also destroyed her spirit. Society has no place for people like you, the judge said before reading the verdict. The trial ended with Kadono being sentenced to 20 years in prison for aggravated sexual assault and breach of trust. When the judge announced the verdict, the entire courtroom fell silent. Kadono, who had been Mr. Bukasai's best friend, had now become a criminal despised by society. I was not present at the final trial. I was still recovering and not ready to face Kadono again. However, when I received the news of the verdict, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Dad, I don't know if this sentence will help me forget what happened, I said to Mr. Bukasai one afternoon as we sat together. Mary, I know these wounds will take a long time to heal. But justice has been served. You are not alone, and I will always be here, with you every step of the way. Mr. Bukasai held my hand, his eyes full of love. In the following days, I began my healing journey. With the support of psychologists, I gradually faced my fears and regained my confidence. The sessions were not easy, but each time I emerged from the nightmare, I felt a little stronger. My story became a wake-up call in the community. My family did not stay silent but chose to speak up. Mr. Bukasai has funded organizations that support victims of sexual violence and has organized talks and seminars on protecting women in modern society. Every time someone is silent, a bad person has the opportunity to continue to harm others. I shared in a speech after the incident. Although I still have indelible scars, I am determined to turn my pain into strength to help others. Congratulations on watching the whole video. If you feel good, please give me a like button, so you don't miss the next video.